Welcome back. This week we're going to go with my all-time favorite spring pattern. This is Kelly Gallup's Nancy P. Water temperatures start getting close to 50 and the Nancy's coming out, especially on the Missouri and Olive. One of my absolute favorite patterns to fish in that time at that time of the year. It's great throughout the year, but I mean this is it's like the Super Bowl for crayfish. That magic water temperature when it gets there. So this is going to be the full-size version. I typically fish the miniature, the minis, but I'm going to tie the full size. I'm going to save the minis for later. I have another color combination that I want to highlight, and we're gonna, I don't know if I'm going to let that secret out of the bag. We're going to see. I might hang off on that one. But to start on this one, I'm just going to get a thread base down and try not to hook it around the barb there. Get a thread base going to the back here as well. And then I'm going to stop this a little bit short of the point of the hook. Then I'm going to find some rubber legs here. I'm going to go with 2 pieces. 2 rubber legs, if I can get them unstick. There we go. Oh man, all sorts of activity going on. We got bikes and dogs, flies, you name it. Alright, like I said, 2 pieces. I'm going to cut that in half and then I'm going to tie these in. These are going to be the antenna. And this is just a little funky pumpkin and orange and yellow, a little bit of everything going on here. I'm going to go slightly longer than the length of my hook. If I have to, toward the end there, I'll trim that out. But I'm going to go slightly longer. Now I'm just going to get a few thread wraps on this away from where my tie-off point is going to be, or where I'm going to stop with my thread. These wraps are a lot more loose than what the rest of them are going to be here, because if I go and pull down real tight on these right now, it's going to flare all of those out and it's just going to make an absolute mess, and it's going to be really tough to get those. You're going to have to back your thread off because it'll stay splayed out like that. So now I'm going to take a wrap around all of these. And I'm just going to secure that a little bit, and then as I go forward I'm going to make some tighter wraps. So I'm going to keep these in here. This is just going to add to my bulk for the body here. And before I get to the front, I just want some nice even wraps just on the hook. I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch there. That's where I'm going to tie in the pinchers, the rabbit strips. Just trying to even those up slightly. Everything looks pretty clean there, and then I'm going to make some tighter wraps going back toward the back. We're going to tie in our body, and for that we're going to use some medium Cactus chenille. This is olive. It's a little bit on the greener side than I would like for it to be, but that's alright. I think it's going to look pretty good here. So I'm going to peel this stuff back to where I'm just tying in the cotton here. And I didn't get a good grab on that. There we go. Just tying in the cotton, that way you don't create a little bump. And we're going to take this right to where we left off before, still leaving about that 1/4 inch. Now we're going to take and make our first wrap, making sure that you have good coverage throughout there. I usually get about 2 to 3 wraps in here first, and then I anchor that in. Make sure that you hold your tails Just in case you didn't get a good solid wrap on that, by holding that tail, it'll keep everything from spinning on you. A couple more wraps through there. Just working this right to the front, anchoring about every 3 to 4 wraps. Now I'm going to go back over top of this to add just a little bit more bulk through here. Just about 2 to 3 wraps, making sure I'm taking 2 to 3 wraps back, and then that way I know that I have good coverage there. And then I'm going to tie this off. Just expose a little bit of cotton there. There we go. And what that does is it just firms that up a little bit, and it helps keep the rabbit strips on this one further apart. That has a little bit more bulk. I don't know if I like that Cactus Chenille as a medium. I'd probably switch it back to a small for this one, but I figured with the bigger fly I'd go with that. If you want to, you could trim a little bit of it out, but really, I mean, once you get these in here, it's not going to matter much. On these rabbit strips, I used to do magnums for the bigger ones. I kind of went away from that a little bit. I don't know why. I like the smaller ones more so now than anything. There we go. Now, make sure that when you're tying this in, your hide is going back toward the hook, or back toward your tail. You don't want to be tying this in the opposite direction, then you're going to be fighting it the entire time. So I'm just going to measure this out real quick. I'm going to take where the hide is close to the end of those rubber legs, and then I'm just going to trim this off right here, making sure that I'm going under the hide and I'm not robbing that next portion of any material that should be on it. So now just clearing this out, that way I have a nice tie-in point, and I'm going to bring this hide right next to the eye. I'm going to go 1 wrap, 2 wrap, and move this back just slightly, making sure that I have a good grip on this. There we go. I'm not pulling down on it too awful tight just yet. I'm going to wait until I get both of these on to really flare it out. Now I'm going to take and do the same thing on the opposite side. Just running this right down the center. Get a good grip on that. 1, 2, 3 pretty solid wraps. I'm going to take this tail and measure it out, and then I'm going to take my razor blade, and when I do this, I'm only cutting the hide. That's the only thing that I'm cutting. I'm not going into the actual fur. I just want to nick that until I hit the hide, and then that way it still has that feather coming, or it still has that fur coming back. Now you can see how that's nice and flared out right there. The last thing that I want to do before I finish this section off is I'm just working my way back slightly so I get a little bit more grip on that hide, and then I'm going to pull really tight here, and it's going to flare those pinchers out even more. When you're fishing this thing, I mean, this is so fun to watch in the water when these legs are just moving constantly. It causes so much commotion, and it gives an awesome crayfish appearance. It really does, and the fish just go absolutely insane over it. So now I'm going to clear out my eye here with a couple of clean wraps. I'm going to go back onto the top. 2, 3. Go ahead and whip finish. I'm going to get one more in there. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now there's the back half of our hook. Before I take that out of the vise, I'm just going to touch this up a little bit. Got a little bulky right before the end there. That's alright. Alright, everything's looking good so far. Get over here. I'm going to take the articulation wire, same as always, 19 strand Beadalon, and 1 red bead. Get that one out of our way and set that off to the side for now. This is a 7008 from MFC. This is a size 4. The back was a size 4 as well. 3X in the back, 4X in the front. As usual on a lot of these patterns. And then we're just going to work a thread base down here again. Stopping right at the barb of the hook. And then we're going to tie in our eyes. With this, I'm just going to go 1 loop right around my eye. This is a medium eye. If you want to, you could probably get away with a large, depending on how much more weight you really want to add to it. I don't really feel that it's necessary. If you're running a heavy enough sinking line, it's not going to matter. There, just get a couple of good wraps, secure those eyes before I finish up with it though. I'm going to take some Zap. Right over the top here. And then on the bottom, just get a little bit of glue. I don't want a ton in there, just enough to give me a little bit of extra security. And then I'm going to finish wrapping this off here. Uh-oh. Sounds like damn Sturgis out there. Okay. Now we're going into tying in our back section, getting our articulation how we want it. As always, just a couple of loose wraps here. That way you're still able to manipulate where this, or you're going to be able to manipulate your distance here. And these are a little bit shorter on the connection than what the majority of the articulated flies are. I feel like I have a little, oh no, that's good. I want this a little bit shorter than the majority of the articulations. We're probably going to go about half of a bead width here. So that bead's touching. I'm going to bring that in just a little bit more. Right about there should do. And the reason behind that is you want this back end to go more up and down than you do side to side. Let me see if I'm happy with that or not. I'm gonna pull that just a little bit more. I think that'll work right there. Now, yeah, that's gonna work good. So now I'm just gonna go back over top of this, double over my wire, gives a little bit extra security. Flip that around, there we go. Now for the skirt on this one, we're just going to take some of the rabbit that we have, and that's going to work as our skirt here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this. I'm going to set this going right back the side. and that's going to be my coverage for the connection. You want that running into the rabbet on the that's on the pinchers. You want that. You want this back. You want this skirt section running into the front hook, or the back hook, sorry. That way it's going to look like a nice smooth connection through there. And then I'm going to do one more over the top. You can skip this if you want to. I don't know why, I've always done it. I've always put 3 on there. One on each side and then one going over the top. And like I said, if you want to skip it, go ahead. So now I'll throw that one in. And that'll complete the skirt on this one. Now before I tie in the body material, because we're going to use some Schlappen on this one, where do I got it here? Get over here. This is just a Brassie sized yellow wire. This is going to be our rib and our counter wrap for the Schlappen. Take a couple of wraps through here, double that wire over, bring it back around, and get that secured into place. Back to the body here, and this body's going to wind up going right to where I doubled over that wire. I'm going to take it right there. I'm going to tie the Schlappen in front of that, and then run it the rest of the way, still leaving me a little bit of room to tie in the rubber legs and my collar. So there's a half hitch. Now we're just going to take this, and same as before, I like to get at least 2 wraps in there before I anchor that. 3 to 4 wraps, anchor it again. 3 to 4 and anchor. I got that last wrap just kind of spun on me there a little bit, and it's going a little more far forward than I would like for it. So I'll just back that off and then tie that right before our eyes, leaving a little bit of room right here to get the Schlappen and rubber legs in before we start on the deer hair work. With the Schlappen, we're going to go, this is just Nature's Spirit. This is a Grizzly variant, olive, if it'll get out of the pack there. I'm going to try and find a piece that's not overly long, but still has some decent black in there. I like it. I like that black to come through a little bit. Just kind of breaks the color up. That'll work. Get that tied into place. A couple of good secure wraps. And then we'll half hitch again. You can go with a straight olive if you want. It's entirely up to you. I always like this Grizzly variant, no matter what it is. If I'm doing dungeons or Nancy's or even Boogeyman, a lot of times I'll use that. It just breaks it up a little bit. It looks good to me. I like the way that it looks, but is it going to fish much different than if you use a straight olive? Not likely. Just a personal preference. So now I'm going to get a good wrap right in the front, and then I'm just going to nice and even on the spacing all the way back. Fluff that stuff out a little bit. This stuff's really webby. I'm probably gonna catch a couple of these with my counter wrap. So go the opposite direction with your wire. Get that out of the way, and then just rip this. Get a better grip on that. Rip that right through it, And if you go pretty quick, you typically don't trap a lot of fibers. It seems like when you take your time and try and go through there real slow and pick through it, you wind up picking up more than when you just rip right through it. So get rid of our wire, and then we're going to get rid of this butt section in the back. Everything is secure right there. If you get a tooth that comes in after you get a couple of eats on this one, and you know, with that wire there, it's going to really shore up that Schlappen. If you didn't have it, there's a good chance that it'll get in there and then it just uncoils on you and just makes a mess. Got to throw the fly away. So now I want to go with 3 pieces or 3 legs here for the front section. I'm going to go with these 3 rubber legs. I like this offset color a little bit as well, you know, with the orange and yellow, and there's like a little olive or brown in there, but I just like the way that it looks. Whatever color you decide to go with, whatever one looks good to you, have at it. So now I'm going to cut those just a little bit short. I'm going to get a straw to go over top of all of this while we're doing the deer hair work. That way I'm not going to cut any Schlappen or rubber legs, anything like that, and I have a clean area to work with. I'm going to switch over to 200, give a good half hitch in there, and where did I put it? I know I just had it here. There it is. There it is. Like I was saying, back to the gel spun 200. And I'm going, you can see this here, how close I have this to the eyes. I don't want a ton of room back here. It's not designed to look like a sculpting, so you don't have to have the longer pectoral fins and all that stuff. I'm going to shorten those up, and I'll explain that as I tie them in. But I'm going to shorten those up a little bit. And it's not really an incredibly bulky head as well. But like I was saying, I'll explain that as I go through them. The difference between this and a dungeon. So we're going to get our collar here. We're going to clean all of our deer hair out. Drop this in the stacker. I had a couple wanting to go a little wild on me there. That doesn't look good at all. Those tips are all busted up and everything. Well, that's not going to work. I wonder what caused that. Oh well. Just repeat that step over again. Like I said, this collar isn't really all that bulky. Still, you don't want it to look real sparse, so make sure you have enough in here to where it's at least going to fill out that fly. It doesn't have to be as excessive as like a dungeon or a cougar, because this isn't part of the steering mechanism, if you will, on this fly. So I'm just going to take this now, and I'm going to measure this out, and I'm going to stop it short of the point of the hook on this fly. Typically when I do these, it's to the point or the barb, somewhere between that. I'm stopping it short of the point of the hook. Now remember as well, it's a 4X long, so that's going to lengthen your collar out some. If you want to, you can pull it back even more. I'm just going to trim that off flush. spin my thread to the right, and I'm going to go 1. It slid on me. It slid. And I might have to edit this deer hair work out. Look like a rookie. Look like a rookie. Alright. Last time, I promise. I don't feel like I really need to explain this. You guys have seen me do it. This is the 3rd time now, so I'm going to go through this as quick as I can. Alright. Like I was saying, measure that out now. We got the distance that we want. Cut this off square. Give that a good spin. Then I'm going to go 1, 2, and it's secure. The 3rd one, I'm going to press that down just a little bit, and there you can see the nice half moon that we're after on that. Now I'm going to take this just the same as the dungeon because you're tying behind lead eyes. I don't need a ton of deer hair on this. I need just enough to where it's going to flare out for me. You're not able to stack this, so you're going to go top, bottom, and then spin on the front. I was going to say you're not able to spin this. I said stack, but you're not able to spin this, so you have to stack it. Now we're just going to take right over the top here. 1, 2, pull a little bit tighter. That thread's starting to disappear. I'm going to get a 3rd and pull down tight. You can see all that stuff flare out real nice for you. Back to another section here. We're going to do this. We're going to do the exact same thing on the bottom. I'm going to set that underneath. My straw's wanting to fall off on me. Set that underneath, catch the center stack, same thread path as before. Make sure that you're just right behind the eyes. 1, 2, get a 3rd, pull down tight. It's going to flare that stuff out for you. Now this is, in this regard, the same as the dungeon. Make sure that you don't pack this stuff. Make sure that you don't have entirely too much material in here. If you go getting this a real compact head, it's not going to have that jig motion that you're after, and it's not going to shed water on the back cast, and really it's just not going to swim how it was designed. I'm going to get a decent amount of deer hair here, not a ton, because like I was saying, you want this to be a loosely packed head. You don't want this real tight like a D&D or anything like that. With that being said, you're going to spin this, so take a little bit more than you took for your stacks. Just going to trim that off. And then same as before, I'm going to catch everything with my ring and thumb, and then we're going to go 1, 2, threads starting to disappear, a 3rd, and now we're going to spin that around. There you have a nice clean section of deer hair. Now the only thing left to do is just find your eye. Don't push that back. Push that back just enough to where you find that eye and don't compress it anymore. 1, 2, 3. We're good. 1, 2, 3. Alright. Now, the difference between this and the dungeon on the trim is the dungeon's nice and flush on the bottom. With this one, it's going to be rounded on both sides. A little bit more bulk on the top than the bottom is what I typically do, but if it's uniform, it's not going to be the end of the world. Get that back in there. Alright. Typically I start on the bottom on deer hair. I'm going to start on the top, get the overall shape that I'm after. Just give a half moon on your razor blade and just push slowly right through there to get the overall shape. Don't rush through this trimming process. Take your time with it, because this is the deer hair on any fly that incorporates deer hair. This is what makes or breaks the pattern. So take your time on it. Just work right through this section. Same thing, I'm going to half moon on the bottom. I'm going to make a cut that is not very aggressive. You can see that I'm starting to get the shape that I want. And now I'm going to trim this a little bit further here. I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive on this one. I want this nice and rounded, like I was saying. This one's going to be a little bit less than the top. And if my straw hadn't fallen out of the way here, I'd be able to push that in and really clean up that underneath side. So I'm just going to have to be careful not to trim my rubber legs or the Schlappen. So I'm just going to feather this right through here. Being careful not to trim it or to nick any of that stuff. Feather that through there. And now I'm going to take a little bit more off of this top. A little bulkier than I want it. And now I'm just nitpicking. Which, if you've watched any of my videos before, you're not surprised. I'm pretty happy with that for now. I'm going to let that go. I'll trim it up a little bit more here after I shut the cameras off. But the last thing that I want to do is just find the eyes on this. I'm going to trim those eyes out a little bit. Same thing on this side. There we go. Now we'll get our rubber legs to where we can see them. Bring the Schlappen back into play. There's our 3 legs on each side. Got the Schlappen there. You turn this around, you can still see the body underneath. I have some trimming that I want to do on that to free that bottom section up a little bit. But for the most part, there is the Nancy P minus some trimming that I need to do on the deer hair. But as always, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll catch you on the next fly.